On today's video, I'm going to show you a sorceress which does nothing but critical strikes. It's a 100% critical strike build, and I'll show you how to maintain the 100% critical strike. And lastly, I'm going to tell you how to maximize having 100 critical strikes on our sword. The core of the build is an aspect called the Elementalist aspect. It could be imprinted on gloves, amulet, rings, and weapon. However, since it's our core aspect, we're going to be using it on our two-hand staff, meaning at a perfect roll, we're going to have 80% extra critical hit chance provided we meet the condition. And the only condition is having 100 mana whenever we cast a core or mastery skill. In our case, that would be eye shards. So where do we get the +2 mana rolls? One is equipment, second is paragon. You can use some of your skills to get some +2 mana. I didn't write it since I don't think it's worth using your skill points to get those little bit of mana points. Out of the 10 equipment slots, there's only 3 slots you can find the +2 mana rolls. That would be the helmet, the first ring, and your second ring. On the Paragon board where the static surge is located, somewhere there you'll find a rare and a magical node, which gives you a total of 16 bonus to mana. For the mana upkeep, a lot of them involves a mechanic called Lucky Hit. Let me try to explain what that is real quick before we head down to the ways in order to maintain our mana pool. In order for us to trigger a Lucky Hit, we need to meet a minimum of 2 conditions. These conditions are rolled separately, the first one being the lucky hit percentage on our character screen, and the second one found on the item or the skill that we wish to trigger. Let me give you an example. The passive skill Frigid Breeze, when triggered, will restore 15 mana. It has to fulfill 3 separate conditions in order to proc. First, the target has to be vulnerable. Second, it has to roll a lucky hit determined by our character screen percentage. The third and final condition is to roll that 20% lucky hit determined by this passive skill, which is a unique value by itself. There's no limit as to how much mana we can gain by proccing Frigid Breeze as long as we meet all 3 conditions. Needless to say, having lots of +2 lucky hits items will greatly increase our chances of maintaining our mana above 100. Another great synergy to keep our mana upkeep is the combination of the Elemental Attunement passive skill and the Prodigy aspect, which by the way could only be imprinted on rings. The passive requires 3 conditions in order to proc, but the good news is that the requirement is a critical strike. Since we're critting 100% of the time, we'll be proccing this almost always immediately. Note however that this passive has a 10-second cooldown. 5 out of 6 skills in our skill tab are cooldown based, therefore they all function as mana potions as well. Alternatively, you can go instead for a combination of the Umbral aspect, which can restore up to 4 mana per instance of crowd control. Combine this with the Frostbolt enchantment, which applies chill to all your skills. Or the Umbral aspect plus a unique boots called the Penitent Greaves, which would chill everything you walk on. The first requires sacrificing an enchantment slot. The second sacrifices some skills and an imprint from your favorite boots. I'm not using neither, so I'm just laying it out there for you guys so you'll have choices which would better suit your playstyle. And if you're rolling a lightning type of sorceress, you'll have an alternative option such as the recharging aspect and the static surge legendary node from the Paragon board. Both do not require any lucky hit instance, which is great. And speaking of lucky hits can be rolled on the ring 1 and ring 2, the gloves, and an extra lucky hit chance while on barrier on the helmet as well. On the Paragon board, the Advantage Paragon chip as well as the one beside it will give you a total of an extra 7% more lucky hit chance. As far as the equipment rolls are concerned, having a high critical hit damage will greatly increase our damage. Critical hit damage rolls can be found on rings, weapons, skills, and Paragon. Having an 80% bonus to critical hit strikes relaxes the need for critical hit chance on our equipment. Basically, we only need a total of 20% in order to achieve a 100% critical strike uptime. Minus being just a sacred ring, these might be the perfect adds you might want to find for a perfect ring for the build. The ring has lucky hit chance, maximum mana, critical strike damage, and critical strike chance. As for the weapon, there are only two things you're going to be looking for: a weapon with more than 800 item power and a critical strike damage. Unfortunately, I haven't found any aspects with a perfect 80%, so I'm still waiting on that one so I can imprint it on this weapon. The next way, and probably the best way to increase our damage, is through this passive called the Devouring Blaze. The passive increases our critical hit damage by 30% at level 3, and the only condition is that the enemy must be burning. Adding Firebolt as an enchantment easily solves this condition as long as we're hitting the mobs with our skills. The juicy part is, the bonus is going to be 75% critical hit damage if the target is immobilized. The easiest way to immobilize the mobs is the imprint called the Binding Embers. If you have the aspect of control imprinted on your equipment, you can further increase this damage by another percentage. One thing to note about this aspect, which makes it one of the best aspects in the game, is that the bonuses for the three conditions, if met, are treated separately, meaning you get an extra bonus increase for each instance that you freeze, immobilize, and stun. That being said, another optional unique item to add more damage is the Raiment of the Infinite Armor, which provides a stun condition which isn't normally available for cold builds. Although I already have this unique item, I'm still for the most part using my normal legendary chest piece for the Nightmare dungeons. In order to run the Raiment chest effectively, I would have to change one of my enchantment to teleport, so basically trading some damage from burn towards the stun. But if your goal is the ultimate highest DPS combined with like ninja reflexes, this might be the better armor for you. If you made it up this far on this video, thank you. I enjoy theory crafting game mechanics and builds, and if that's your thing, you might want to consider subscribing, as that would mean a lot for me too. I would love to talk more about the balance between defensive and damage imprints, but this video has been very long already. The items shown on this video will be shown after the boss fight, and you can pause them as you please. And as a bonus, let me show you my recently rolled Devouring Blaze amulet, as it now gives me a total of an extra 150% critical hit damage. Thank you again for watching, and I hope to see you on the next video. Peace and out.